Okay, so here is the beloved timber. Floor pan is basically completely gone, you know, no roll cage, stuff like that. So I'm gonna do a little, now we have this. So this is basically the new timber. It's already been cut off in the front, has the front end nose support. That's gonna be right there. Sorry, y'all are on a gimbal, so it's like hard to talk to the camera, point, all that stuff. Has a complete roll cage already put in there. It's been tubbed. That rear portion has been cut out. That's not really good for us, but it is what it is. There's an actual existing floor pan. It's not just kind of hanging on for dear life. It has door panels, which are going to go onto the drag car, and dash is already in there, which that's probably going to come out. But yeah, this is what we're working with. 4-lug right there. Has a 8.8 in the rear end and a flat tire. John, what do you think?
What? Oh, yeah. So we're going to build the subframe with all the stuff you've got. That gets squared away. The back, the rear end is pretty much done. But the very thing we just talked about over there with strengthening up the twist points and the torque points, I haven't really looked at the car yet to see if he's done anything. And I don't see anything done with that.
Me either.
So, but that's okay. I mean, look, he's reinforced a lot of stuff in the right way. The next problem you got here is he built this thing for a fuel cell. So you're either going to a fuel cell or you're going to use the stock tank. What you can use is how do you get the stock tank in here now? And that's going to have to be a little creative.
I was actually thinking about it. If I made a plate right here and then just made a bracket that runs over that fuel tank and then bolt straight up, I mean, it'd literally just be a bracket that goes over the tank, bolt straight up.
Make it out of 1x? Like 1x? Could. That would work. But there's some things that my eye's catching right away. Like even though this is an 8.8 rear end, look at the bushings that are in it. The bushings are junk.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really gonna have to take it apart and really look at it and see what's going on. You're gonna have to want to put a decent spool in here. Probably run like a 411 gear.
Right.
Because this engine is good for some RPMs. Small 4-cylinder engine. You heard the guy talking the other day. You heard him yesterday explaining how what he was doing with his, and this engine's actually a notch above his. So you should be able to turn, well, really some good RPMs, and that's where all the horsepower and torque's going to come from. There's going to be nothing on the bottom end, so you have to keep this thing twisted up pretty hard. If you're going to go with that tall of a tire, I'm not even sure 411s are going to be good enough. You may have to go to a 456 or a 488. We'll see.
Right.
The problem is when you start getting to that large of a gear, the pinion gear itself starts getting narrower and narrower
because you have less to fit contact. More teeth.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's where you can tear stuff apart.
Also, I forgot to mention this. We do have an 18-inch tire on here, or a wheel.
It's kind of weird that one is broken. That raises suspicion. Like the one still has the 4. What's that? Which means probably you had a broken axle and someone grabbed an axle and stuck it in there just to make the car mobile for whatever reason, because that's 4 lugs. And the 4-lug axle from the smaller rear end probably does fit in the housing. I don't know. Apparently it does. It doesn't matter. That stuff's coming apart. We are going to run the 5-lug. We are going to rebuild the rear end. The rear end's here. You've got your transmission. You've got your motor. You've got a radiator, I think, already.
Yeah.
You have a radiator with fans. The electrical is going to be what it is. Remember, this car has to be registered. Remember, okay? In order to get this car registered, you're going to need turn signals, and you're going to need windshield wipers, and you're going to need a horn, and you're going to need headlights, and blah, 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 blah. Yep. Now, we are using the square front end, square headlight front end.
Right.
So that means the opportunity to use the HEI stuff is there. You know, high density, HEI, HED, whatever it's called. High LED, high intensity lighting.
Yeah.
You could use that, and you want as much lighting in this car as you could get. You're not allowed to put lighting on the roof, which seems silly to me, but that's the way it is. But we could get we get other lighting in there. I think where the brake vents are, you've got the holes in there for the brake vents.
Yeah.
That should turn into lighting. You should put lighting there because as far as brake cooling goes, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem in this series.
I mean, it's like a 7-minute route, and I don't.
7 minutes. Is that how long it takes?
It depends on who's driving and what you're driving, but
Very funny. Okay, we'll say it's less than 10 minutes. The question is, what's the heat buildup in the rotor? And I don't think it's going to be
I doubt
that
it's
great.
high, just because if you're slamming on brakes constantly, you're just gonna be sliding.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You're in the dirt, right?
Yeah.
So if you're braking really hard in the dirt, you're trying to make that turn or trying to do what you're going to do, the friction comes from the heat being generated in the rotor. I think if you're in the dirt, you probably don't generate that much heat.
Yeah.
You know who that question belongs with, right?
Yeah.
It's John Haywood. John Haywood would tell you in 3 seconds what you need to use in here. You need great front brakes. You need okay rear brakes. And you need I don't know how the other brake thing works.
The hydro?
I'm not a drifter, so I don't know how to make the whole drifting thing work. Not me, I don't know how it works. My thing is, do you have the horsepower? Is the car safe? Once again, you don't really need a fuel cell. If we do our magic to the fuel tank you've got here, I like it because the fuel indicator works, right?
Yep.
You'd have a fuel gauge that actually works. You'd have fuel pressure made by Ford design, right? So you got a Ford design fuel pressure pickup and pump in the tank that we know is OEM qualified. And
Right.
the only thing we got to worry about is safety. How can we make this tank safety? And we know how to make the tank safe, right?
Yeah.
So, but the question is, how are you going to get it in here? Your idea may work. You may have to do some modification, but I'd like to run the stock tank. But what you got to do is get to a point where you go, is this stock tank worth the aggravation of trying to get it in here?
Right.
Looking for safety, or do we just put a fuel cell in it? We might actually have a fuel cell here that could
Right.
work. Because what's it, 7 minutes? How much fuel do you need? 10 gallons, maybe? Not
Maybe.
even. So you're looking at 10 gallons, right?
Yeah. I mean,
You're looking at a small fuel tank. The 12
honestly,
gallon
you could
fuel
probably
tank
pass
is
with like
more than
7.
ex- What's that?
You could probably pass with 7 gallons.
I
mean, you'd be pushing it at that point, but if you want to just
let me
do
tell you
one
the
lap
problem.
and one
Let
lap
me
only.
give you from racing for a long time. Never fails. You're going to run out of fuel if you have a smaller tank. I'll guarantee it. And you won't run out of fuel because the tank isn't capable of making the run. You run out of fuel because somebody forgot to put fuel in it,
Right.
or your idle time waiting to go is longer than you expected because you're sitting there with the engine running,
Yep.
and Joe Blow rolled his car over onto a tree, and everybody's waiting around for it to sweep the thing up. You've been to the tracks with us. You've been
Yes.
to other racing with us. How many times have the track's dead? Why is the track dead? Well, one of the other class cars rolled his car off the track, and there's oil all over the track, and everyone's trying to fix the problem. Right?
Yeah, somebody sent a piston through the bottom of their block. No biggie. It'll be done in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, that happens, and
Yeah.
the more you're stretching the limits of the engine, the more likely you're going to have engine failure, right?
Right.
That's why we tried really hard in building this engine. When we went to the engine builder, we went to HT, we said, listen, we want you to build an engine that will run for 12 hours flat out. And he went, understood. I want the most amount of horsepower I could get reliably to make an engine run that long. Well, part of it he can do, part of it becomes our responsibility. Our responsibility is the engine being cooled properly. Is the engine being oiled properly? Is the engine getting the right kind of fuel in the right kind of way? Now that's our problem.
Yeah.
He can build the best bottom end on the planet, but if we don't treat it right, it's our fault, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is when we're going to build this, what you need to do right now, is you need to have your build list.
Right.
Right? Every car in there has a build sheet, right?
Right.
The build sheet in it is what do we need to do? And I think that when you build a build sheet, it's going to be 8-10 pages long. I'll make a bet right now. I'll bet you lunch, your build sheet is an 8-10 pages long. And if it's only 5 pages, hand it to me. I'll put the other 5 pages on it and show you what else that you've missed. You got 90 days.
Yeah.
And you already signed up because I signed you up.
Yeah.